She thought her husband winning $50 million would be the beginning of their fairy tale. She was wrong. Kevin Myers stood in the parking lot of Lexington Tower, his hands trembling as he clutched the lottery ticket that had just changed everything. His 6-year-old son, Tommy, bounced excitedly beside him, completely unaware of the magnitude of what had just happened. $50 million. After years of struggling, of working 2 jobs while his wife Arlene climbed the corporate ladder, after all the nights he'd put Tommy to bed alone because Arlene had another late meeting, finally, something good. "Daddy, can we see Mommy now?" Tommy tugged at his jacket. Kevin smiled, his heart racing with anticipation. "Yeah, buddy, we're going to surprise her. But before we continue with this beautiful story, please kindly subscribe to this channel and comment where you are watching from. And also share below what life or relationship challenge you are facing right now, or what someone you know is going through. Don't forget to like this video as well. All these mean a lot to us." Kevin had imagined this moment 1,000 times. He'd pictured Arlene's face lighting up, her jumping into his arms the way she used to when they first married. Maybe this money would fix everything that had been broken between them. Maybe she'd finally look at him the way she had before her promotion, before the distance, before the coldness that had crept into their marriage like frost on a window. He pushed through the revolving doors of the sleek office building, Tommy's hand warm in his. The lobby was all marble and glass, the kind of place that always made Kevin feel small. Arlene worked on the 12th floor as a senior marketing director. He'd only been here a handful of times. She never invited him to company events anymore. "Can I help you?" The security guard looked up from his desk. "I'm here to see Arlene Myers. I'm her husband." The guard's expression flickered with something Kevin couldn't quite read. Pity, maybe. "She's in a meeting right now. You might want to." "It's important, really important." Kevin's grip tightened on the lottery ticket in his pocket. The guard hesitated, then nodded. 12th floor. Her office is at the end of the hall. The elevator ride felt endless. Tommy chattered about what he wanted to buy with Daddy's lucky ticket, listing toys and video games with the innocent enthusiasm of childhood. Kevin barely heard him. His mind was racing ahead, planning the words. "Arlene, we did it. We're free. You can quit this job. We can be a family again." The elevator dinged. The 12th floor was quiet, most of the offices dark. It was nearly 7 p.m. Of course, Arlene was still here. She was always still here. "Mommy's office is the big one, right, Daddy?" Tommy whispered, as if they were on a secret mission. "That's right, buddy." Kevin's heart pounded as they walked down the plush carpeted hallway. He could see light spilling from under Arlene's office door at the end. He quickened his pace, a smile spreading across his face despite his nervousness. Then he heard it. Laughter. Arlene's laughter. The kind he hadn't heard in years. Light and genuine and filled with joy. And then a man's voice. Deep, intimate. Kevin froze, his hand instinctively covering Tommy's ears even though they were still too far away for the boy to hear clearly. "You're terrible," Arlene said, her voice muffled through the door but unmistakable. That playful tone she used to use with him, back when they were young and everything was an adventure. "You love it," the man replied. Kevin's feet moved on their own, carrying him closer. His free hand was still clutching the lottery ticket, now crumpled in his sweating palm. "We should be more careful," Arlene said, but there was no real concern in her voice. "Kevin won't," the man interrupted. "He never does. You said yourself he's too busy playing house husband to notice anything." The air left Kevin's lungs. Tommy looked up at him, confused by the sudden stop. "Daddy?" "Shh," Kevin managed, his voice barely working. "I know, but—" Arlene's voice again. "God, why do I even feel guilty? He's so content, so small. You know, he asked me last week if I thought we should have another baby. Can you imagine?" The man laughed. "What did you tell him?" "What could I tell him? I said maybe someday. But honestly, Derek, I can barely stand the thought of—" If you're enjoying this story so far, pause and comment, "I am enjoying the story," below. Kevin pressed his back against the wall, his legs threatening to give out. Derek Morrison, Arlene's boss. The man she'd mentioned casually over the past 2 years, always professionally, always in the context of work. The man whose wife had just left him 6 months ago. Arlene, Derek's voice dropped lower. You know how I feel about you. How long are you going to keep pretending with him? Silence. The kind of silence that screamed louder than words. I don't know, Arlene finally whispered. It's complicated. There's Tommy, and Kevin has been such a good father and you're miserable, Derek finished. I can see it. Every time you mention going home, you look like you're preparing for a prison sentence. That's not fair, but it's true. More silence. Then a sound that made Kevin's stomach turn. The rustle of movement, the creak of leather, the unmistakable intimacy of closeness. We should stop, Arlene said, but her voice was breathless. Should we? Kevin's hand finally found the door handle. He didn't think, couldn't think. The lottery ticket fell from his other hand, fluttering to the floor like a broken promise. He opened the door. The scene before him wasn't as dramatic as it could have been. They weren't kissing, weren't embracing. But somehow that made it worse. Arlene was perched on the edge of her desk, Derek's standing close enough that their knees touched. Her hand was on his chest. His hand covered hers. They looked at each other the way Kevin and Arlene used to look at each other. They looked at each other the way married people should look at each other. Arlene's face went white. Kevin. Derek stepped back smoothly, professionally, as if he'd rehearsed this moment. Mr. Myers, I didn't realize. Mommy! Tommy squeezed past Kevin's legs, oblivious to the tension crackling through the room like electricity. Daddy has a surprise for you. Arlene's eyes met Kevin's, and for a brief, infinite moment he saw everything. Guilt, yes, but also relief. Relief at being caught. Relief that the pretending was over. Tommy, go wait by the elevator, Kevin said quietly. But Daddy, now. Something in his voice made Tommy obey without argument. The little boy's footsteps faded down the hallway, leaving a silence so thick Kevin could taste it. How long? Kevin asked. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, calm, detached, like he was asking about the weather. Arlene stood up, smoothing her skirt with shaking hands. Kevin, it's not what. Don't. He held up a hand. Don't insult me more than you already have. I heard everything. How long? Arlene's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but they didn't move him the way they once would have. 8 months, she whispered. 8 months, while he'd been home, cooking dinners she never showed up for. While he'd been putting Tommy to bed and telling him Mommy was just working hard for their family. While he'd been believing her lies about late meetings and business trips. Are you going to say anything? Derek's voice held an edge of impatience that made Kevin's hands curl into fists. Derek, don't, Arlene warned. No, he should say something, Derek continued, his professional mask slipping. If he has something to say about our relationship. Your relationship? Kevin laughed, and the sound was so bitter it surprised him. You're sleeping with a married woman, a mother. That's not a relationship, that's… Kevin, please, Arlene interrupted, her voice breaking. Can we talk about this at home? Away from him? Kevin looked at Derek, really looked at him. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of confidence that came from never having to struggle. The kind of man Arlene had always deserved, probably. The kind of man Kevin had never been. No, I think he should hear this too. He reached into his pocket, fingers closing around the crumpled lottery ticket. He pulled it out slowly, deliberately, and held it up. I came here tonight to tell you we won, he said, his voice steady despite the way his hands trembled. $50 million. I came here to tell you that finally, all our struggles were over, that you could quit this job, that we could be a family again. He paused, letting the words sink in. I came here to save our marriage. Arlene's face transformed, shock, calculation, regret, hope, all flickering across her features in rapid succession. Derek's expression hardened, his eyes fixed on the ticket. Kevin, Arlene breathed, taking a step toward him. Oh my God, Kevin. Don't. He stepped back, keeping the distance between them. I heard what you said about me. Small, content, playing house husband. Is that really what you think? After everything I sacrificed so you could chase your career? I didn't mean it like that, Arlene said quickly, desperately. I was just frustrated. You were honest, Kevin interrupted. Maybe for the first time in months. And you know what? I should thank you for that. He looked down at the lottery ticket in his hand. All those numbers that had seemed like magic an hour ago. All that promise of a better life. He thought about Tommy waiting by the elevator. He thought about the house they'd bought together, the bed they'd shared, the dreams they'd built, and then slowly demolished. The question is, he said slowly, looking up to meet Arlene's desperate gaze, what happens now? Arlene moved toward him, her hand reaching out. Kevin, please. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we can fix this. With the money, we can start over, Can we? He glanced at Derek, who stood silently now, his expression unreadable. Or will you just find another late meeting to attend, another business trip to take? That's not fair, Arlene whispered. Fair? Kevin felt something break open inside him. Not rage, but something colder and more final. You want to talk about fair? I'll tell you what's not fair, Arlene. What's not fair is Tommy asking me every night why Mommy doesn't love us anymore. What's not fair is me defending you to my own son when you can't even bother to show up for his birthday dinner. What's not fair is... His voice cracked. He stopped, swallowed hard, forced himself to continue. What's not fair is that I still love you, he finished quietly. Even after hearing you laugh with him. Even after knowing what you think of me. Even now. Arlene was crying openly now, mascara streaming down her face. Then we can fix this. Kevin, please. I love you too. I got lost. But we can find our way back. With the money. The money. Kevin looked at the ticket again. Yeah, the money changes everything, doesn't it? Derek finally spoke, his voice carefully neutral. Arlene, maybe we should. Shut up, Arlene and Kevin said simultaneously. In any other moment it might have been funny, but there was nothing funny about the way Arlene was looking at Kevin now. Desperate, pleading, and underneath it all, calculating. He could see her mind working, weighing her options, trying to figure out how to salvage this, trying to figure out how to keep the money. I need time, Kevin said finally. I need to think. Okay, Arlene agreed quickly. Yes, time. Take all the time you need. I'll come home tonight and we can... No, Kevin shook his head. You'll stay somewhere else tonight. Maybe here. Maybe with him. I don't care. But Tommy and I are going home alone. You can't keep me from my son, Arlene said, a flash of her old authority returning. I'm not keeping you from him. I'm keeping you from using him as leverage to get what you want. Kevin moved toward the door, then stopped. And Arlene, if you try to take Tommy from me, if you try to use him in whatever legal battle is coming, I will make sure everyone knows exactly why our marriage fell apart. Your parents, your colleagues, everyone. Kevin, you wouldn't. Try me. He walked out, leaving Arlene standing in her office with her boss, her lover, her co-conspirator in betrayal. He picked up Tommy from where the boy sat swinging his legs by the elevator, confused but patient. Is Mommy coming? Tommy asked as they descended. Kevin looked down at his son's trusting face and made a decision. Not tonight, buddy. Tonight it's just you and me. Are we celebrating your lucky ticket? Kevin thought about Arlene's face when she saw what he was holding. He thought about Derek's calculating expression. He thought about 8 months of lies and late nights and lonely dinners. Yeah, he said softly, we're celebrating. But as they walked to the car, Kevin Myers made a choice that would change everything. He pulled out his phone and texted his brother James, the family lawyer, the one who'd never liked Arlene, the one who'd warned him years ago that she was too ambitious to ever be satisfied with a simple life. The message was simple. I need you. Now. And bring paperwork. Behind them, 12 floors up, Arlene Myers stood at her window and watched her husband drive away with their son. And in her mind, she was already calculating. $50 million. Community property. California law. She could still fix this. She could still have everything. But what Arlene didn't know, what Kevin hadn't told her, was that the lottery ticket he'd shown her wasn't the only thing he'd discovered that day. Because when Kevin had gone to claim his winnings, the lottery official had asked him a routine question. Just to confirm, is your current address still 447 Maple Drive? And Kevin, who hadn't changed their address in the 5 years they'd lived at 1823 Oak Street, had realized something. Someone had been checking their lottery numbers. Someone had filed a change of address form in his name. Someone had been planning to claim any winnings before he ever knew they existed. The official had shown him the paperwork, filed 3 weeks ago. The signature was forged, but close. The handwriting unmistakable. Arlene's handwriting. And in that moment, standing in the lottery office with proof that his wife had been planning to steal from him before he'd even won, Kevin had made a choice. He'd played along. He'd rushed to her office with their son. He'd wanted to see her face, hear her truth, understand the depth of her betrayal. Now he knew. And now, driving away from Lexington Tower with his son singing in the back seat, Kevin Myers smiled for the first time in months. Because Arlene thought she was calculating her next move. But Kevin was 3 moves ahead. And tomorrow morning, when Arlene woke up and checked their joint account, she would discover that Kevin had already transferred every penny to a new account in his name only, an account he'd opened 3 months ago when he'd first started suspecting her affair. The lottery money would never touch their joint assets. His lawyer would make sure of that. Arlene had taught him well, after all. She'd taught him that in the modern world, you had to protect yourself. You had to play the game. And Kevin Myers, the small, content house husband, was about to show his wife exactly what he'd learned. Kevin hadn't slept. He'd spent the entire night in Tommy's room, watching his son sleep while his phone buzzed endlessly with Arlene's calls and texts. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages that evolved from apologetic to desperate to angry to threatening. He ignored them all. James had arrived at midnight with divorce papers, a restraining order template, and a bottle of whiskey they'd shared in silence on the back porch while Kevin told him everything. About the affair, about the forged lottery documents, about 8 months of lies. She was going to steal from you, James had said, shaking his head. Before you even won. She was that confident there was money coming. Or she was planning to leave anyway, Kevin replied. Maybe she was just making sure I got nothing. Now, as dawn broke through Tommy's bedroom curtains, Kevin heard the front door open. Arlene had a key, of course. He'd forgotten to change the locks. He moved quietly, closing Tommy's door behind him before heading downstairs. Arlene stood in their living room, still wearing yesterday's clothes, her makeup smudged, her hair disheveled. She looked small and broken, exactly the way she'd looked when they first met, and she'd just lost her father. His heart still ached at the sight. That was the worst part. We need to talk, Arlene said, her voice hoarse. There's nothing to talk about. Kevin, please. She moved toward him, and he saw her strategy immediately. The vulnerable approach, the damsel in distress. I know I hurt you. I know what I did was unforgivable. But we have a son. We have a life together. We have nothing, Kevin interrupted. We have a marriage built on lies and a son you barely see. That's not fair. I work hard to provide for this family. You work hard to avoid this family, Kevin corrected. There's a difference. Arlene's mask slipped, showing a flash of the cold calculation beneath. Fine. You want to do this the hard way? Let's talk about California community property law. That $50 million? Half of it is mine. Is it? Kevin pulled out his phone, opened his banking app and turned the screen toward her. Check our joint account. Arlene's fingers fumbled with her own phone. He watched as she logged in, watched as the color drained from her face. You emptied it. You emptied our entire savings account. My entire savings account, Kevin corrected. The one I opened 3 months ago. In my name only. Remember when you insisted I needed to get better at managing money? When you suggested I open a separate account to practice? I took your advice. You can't do this. I already did. And the lottery money? It'll never touch any joint asset. My lawyer made sure of that. If you're enjoying this story so far, pause and comment, "I am enjoying this story," below. Arlene stared at him like she was seeing a stranger. "Who are you? This isn't like you." "You're right. The old Kevin would have forgiven you, would have believed your tears and your promises. But that Kevin died yesterday, when he heard his wife laugh with another man and call him small. I didn't mean—" "Stop." Kevin held up his hand. "I'm tired of your explanations. I'm tired of your excuses. I'm tired of you." Arlene's eyes narrowed. "You think you're so smart? You think you've won? I have the best lawyers in the city. Derek already offered to pay for them." "Did he?" Kevin smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. "That's interesting. Does his wife know about his generous offer?" "His ex-wife," Arlene corrected. "They're divorced." "Are they?" Kevin pulled out another document from his pocket. James had been busy. According to public records, Derek Morrison and Patricia Morrison are still legally married. Separated, yes, but not divorced, which means Derek has been committing adultery. In California, that affects alimony. It affects asset division. I bet Patricia would be very interested to know who her husband has been spending his evenings with. Arlene went perfectly still. "You wouldn't. Why not? You were willing to forge documents to steal lottery winnings. You were willing to betray our marriage. Why should I play fair when you never did?" "Because of Tommy!" Arlene's voice rose, cracking with genuine emotion for the first time. "Because whatever happened between us, he doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this." "You're absolutely right." Kevin's voice softened. "Which is why I'm giving you a choice. You can fight me on this, drag it through courts, make it ugly. Let Tommy see exactly what kind of person his mother is. Or you can sign the papers James left on the kitchen table and walk away with your dignity intact." "Sign what papers?" "Divorce papers with a very reasonable settlement. You get to keep your career, your reputation, and a clean exit. I get full custody of Tommy, the house, and the lottery money stays mine since it was never marital property." Arlene laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "That's not reasonable. That's everything you want and nothing I want." "What do you want, Arlene? Really?" Kevin stepped closer, and for the first time in months, she backed away from him. "Do you want Tommy? Because I haven't seen you want him in years. Do you want this house? You're never here. Do you want the marriage? Because you killed that 8 months ago. Or do you just want the money?" "That's not fair." "Life isn't fair." Kevin's control finally cracked, his voice rising. "Life isn't fair when you work 2 jobs to support your wife's dreams and she calls you small. Life isn't fair when you sacrifice everything and get betrayed. Life isn't fair when you finally get a chance at something good and discover the person you love most was planning to steal it from you." Arlene flinched. "The address change form. You know about that." "Of course I know. Did you really think I wouldn't check? That I was too stupid to notice?" "I wasn't going to actually." Arlene stopped, realizing there was no explanation that would work. "I was scared. I thought if you won, you'd leave me. So you decided to leave me first? To steal from me first?" Kevin shook his head. "The irony is, Arlene, if you'd just been honest with me, if you just said you were unhappy, I would have given you everything. I would have walked away and let you have the life you wanted." "Then why won't you now?" "Because now I know what you're capable of," Kevin said quietly. "And I won't let you do to Tommy what you did to me." Footsteps on the stairs made them both turn. Tommy stood there in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes, looking between his parents with confusion that was rapidly turning to fear. "Why are you yelling?" he asked, his voice small. Arlene moved first, rushing to the stairs, but Kevin was faster. He scooped Tommy up, holding him close. "We're just talking, buddy. Grown-up stuff." "Mommy, why are you crying?" Tommy reached out to Arlene, and Kevin saw her face crumple. "I'm okay, baby," she whispered. "I'm okay." But she wasn't. And watching her look at their son, really look at him, maybe for the first time in months, Kevin saw something shift in her expression. Saw the calculation fade and something real emerge. Grief, loss, the beginning of understanding. "Can I talk to him alone?" Arlene asked quietly. "Just for a minute?" Every instinct screamed at Kevin to say no, but Tommy was looking at his mother with such hope, such pure, childish love, that Kevin found himself nodding. 5 minutes, he said, setting Tommy down. I'll be in the kitchen. He walked away, but stood just out of sight, listening. He wasn't taking any chances. Tommy, Arlene's voice was soft, broken. You know Mommy loves you, right? Uh-huh. And you know sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, big mistakes? Like when Daddy burned the cookies? Arlene laughed through her tears. Bigger than that, baby, much bigger. Did you burn something? Yeah, Arlene whispered. I did. I burned something very important. There was a pause, and Kevin could picture Tommy's confused expression, his little mind trying to understand adult problems that shouldn't be his to understand. Mommy, are you and Daddy getting divorced? Tommy asked, and Kevin's heart shattered. My friend Jackson's parents got divorced. He has 2 houses now. Arlene didn't answer right away. Kevin heard her crying, heard Tommy's little voice saying, Don't cry, Mommy, it's okay. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. Finally, Arlene spoke. Tommy, I need you to know something. Whatever happens between me and Daddy, it's not your fault. You're perfect. You're the best thing I ever did, and I'm so sorry that I forgot that for a while. You forgot me? No, never you, baby. Never you. I got lost. I made bad choices, and now I have to live with them. Kevin heard footsteps, heard Arlene coming toward the kitchen. He straightened, preparing for another fight, but when she appeared, she looked different. Defeated, maybe, or just finally honest. I'll sign the papers, she said quietly. Kevin blinked, stunned. What? I'll sign them. You're right. About everything. I don't deserve Tommy. I don't deserve you. I don't deserve anything except the consequences of my choices. Arlene. But I have conditions, she continued, her voice stronger now. I get visitation, regular visitation, because maybe I've been a terrible wife and a neglectful mother, but I want to be better. I want a chance to be better. That's fair. And you don't tell Tommy about Derek. Not now. Maybe when he's older, when he can understand. But not now. Let him think we just grew apart. Kevin considered this. Okay. And Kevin? Arlene met his eyes, and for a moment he saw the woman he'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. I really am sorry. For all of it. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. Yeah, Kevin said softly. I did. Arlene nodded, wiped her eyes, and walked to the kitchen table where the papers waited. She read through them slowly, thoroughly, the lawyer in her checking every clause even now. Then she signed, her pen scratching across the pages with a finality that made Kevin's chest tight. There, she said, pushing the papers across the table. It's done. But before Kevin could respond, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Myers, this is Patricia Morrison, Derek's wife. Kevin's eyes flew to Arlene's, saw her go pale. Yes, Mrs. Morrison. I think we need to talk. About our spouses, about what they've been doing, and about how we can make sure they pay for it. Kevin looked at Arlene, at the fear in her eyes, at the realization dawning that this wasn't over, that signing divorce papers wasn't going to make her problems disappear. I think that's an excellent idea, Kevin said slowly. When would you like to meet? Today, as soon as possible. I have information I think you'll find very interesting. About offshore accounts, about company funds, about things that are much worse than just an affair. Arlene stood up, shaking her head, mouthing no desperately, but Kevin held her gaze. I'll be there in an hour, he said. He hung up. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Kevin, please, Arlene whispered. Whatever she told you, whatever she thinks she knows. What did you do, Arlene? What else did you do? I can explain. What did you do? Arlene sank into a chair, her hands covering her face. Derek and we've been planning to start our own company, using contacts from our current jobs, using confidential information, client lists, marketing strategies. We were going to, you were going to steal from your own company? Kevin felt the room spin. Arlene, that's corporate espionage. That's illegal. I know. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I know what it is, but I was going to leave anyway, and I thought I deserved something for all the years I gave them. And Derek said it was standard practice, that everyone does it. Derek lied to you, Kevin said flatly, just like you lied to me, and now you're both going to face the consequences. If this comes out, I'll lose everything. My career, my reputation, I could go to jail. Then you should have thought of that before you decided to betray everyone who ever trusted you. Kevin picked up the signed divorce papers and walked toward the door. Arlene followed him, grabbing his arm. Kevin, please, I'm begging you. Don't do this. I'll do anything. Anything you want. I'll give up all rights to Tommy. I'll give you every penny I have. Just please, don't help her destroy me. Kevin looked down at her hand on his arm, then up at her face. The face he'd loved for a decade. The face that had smiled at him on their wedding day. The face that had looked at him with disgust just yesterday. Let go of me, Arlene. Kevin, let go. She did, and Kevin walked out of his house. His house now, not theirs. Leaving his almost ex-wife crying in the kitchen and his son watching cartoons in the living room, blissfully unaware that his entire world had just changed forever. An hour later, Kevin sat in a coffee shop across from Patricia Morrison. She was elegant, composed, and absolutely furious. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding a folder across the table. I've been gathering evidence for months, ever since I suspected Derek was having an affair. I just didn't know who it was until yesterday when my private investigator finally got photos. Kevin opened the folder. Photos of Arlene and Derek. Not just at the office, at hotels, at restaurants, at Derek's apartment. Timestamps going back 10 months, not 8. She'd lied about when it started. Of course she had. There's more, Patricia continued. Financial records, emails about their business plan, evidence of them using company resources for personal gain, evidence that could put them both in prison. Why are you showing me this? Because I want them to suffer, Patricia said simply. Both of them. Derek gets to walk away from our 20-year marriage with his reputation intact. Your wife gets to steal from you and face no consequences. No, that's not justice. What do you want from me? I want you to help me expose them. I'll go to their company with the corporate espionage evidence. You go to the media with the lottery story, how your wife tried to steal your winnings, how she was having an affair with her married boss. We destroy them together. Kevin looked at the photos, at the evidence, at the scorched earth revenge being offered to him on a silver platter. He thought about Arlene's face when she said she wanted to be better. He thought about Tommy asking if they were getting divorced. He thought about the kind of man he wanted to be versus the kind of man his anger wanted him to become. No, he said finally. Excuse me? I said no, I won't help you. Patricia's expression hardened. She doesn't deserve your protection. This isn't about her. It's about me and the kind of person I want to be. Kevin closed the folder and pushed it back across the table. Arlene will face consequences. She's losing her family. She's losing everything that actually mattered. That's enough. Is it? Is it really enough after what she did to you? Kevin stood up. It has to be. Because if I do what you're asking, if I destroy her completely, then I become just like her. And my son deserves better than that. He walked away, leaving Patricia Morrison and her revenge plot behind. He drove home, where Tommy was waiting, where the divorce papers were waiting, where a new life was waiting. Arlene was gone. A note on the table said she'd gone to stay with her sister, that she'd call about visitation, that she was sorry. Kevin crumpled the note and threw it away. Then he went upstairs and found Tommy building with Legos. Hey, buddy, he said, sitting down. Want to help Daddy plan something fun? What kind of fun? How about we take a trip, just you and me? Anywhere you want to go. Tommy's face lit up. Disney World. Kevin laughed, the first real laugh in days. Disney World it is. They spent the rest of the day planning their trip. And for the first time in months, Kevin felt something like peace. The lottery money sat in his account, untouched. $50 million that suddenly seemed less important than the 6-year-old boy helping him look at hotel pictures. But that night, after Tommy went to bed, Kevin received an email from Derek Morrison. "We need to talk. Meet me tomorrow. Same coffee shop. Come alone." And Kevin knew, with a sinking feeling in his stomach, that this wasn't over yet. Not even close. Kevin almost didn't go. He spent the entire morning convincing himself that whatever Derek wanted to say didn't matter, that this chapter of his life was closed. But curiosity, and something darker, something that wanted confrontation, drove him back to that coffee shop. Derek was already there, looking nothing like the confident executive from Arlene's office. He looked haggard, exhausted, like he'd aged 10 years in 2 days. "Thank you for coming," Derek said as Kevin sat down. "I came to tell you to leave me alone. Whatever you want, whatever." "Patricia's going to the board tomorrow," Derek interrupted. "With everything. The affair, the business plan, all of it. By Friday, Arlene and I will both be fired and possibly facing criminal charges." Kevin said nothing. "I'm not here to ask for mercy," Derek continued. "I know what we did. I know we hurt people. I'm here because Arlene is falling apart. And despite everything, I think you still care about that." "Why would you think that?" "Because you didn't help Patricia destroy us when you had the chance. She told me about your meeting, said you refused." Derek leaned forward. "Why?" "Because I'm not you," Kevin said simply. "I don't destroy people for revenge. Even people who deserve it, especially then, because that's when it's hardest to choose mercy." Derek was quiet for a long moment. "Arlene's in the hospital," he finally said. "She had a panic attack last night, couldn't breathe, thought she was dying." Despite everything, Kevin felt his chest tighten. "Is she okay?" "Physically, yes. Emotionally?" Derek shook his head. "She keeps talking about Tommy, about how she ruined everything, about how you were right. She doesn't deserve either of you." "She doesn't," Kevin agreed, "but she's still his mother, and he still loves her, even if she doesn't deserve it." "What if there was a way to fix this?" Derek asked. "Not the marriage, I know that's over. But what if Arlene could actually become the mother Tommy deserves? What if she could get real help, real therapy, real consequences that led to real change?" "People don't change, Derek, not really." "Maybe not, but people can grow, if they're forced to." Derek pulled out his phone, showed Kevin a document. "I've been talking to Patricia. Negotiating. If Arlene and I turn over everything willingly, the business plans, the client information, everything, and if we both resign and agree to therapy and community service, Patricia will agree not to press criminal charges." "Why would she do that?" "Because I'm giving her everything in the divorce. The house, the cars, the savings, everything. She gets her revenge, just not the way she originally wanted." Derek's expression was bitter. "And I convinced her that destroying Arlene completely would hurt Tommy more than it would hurt Arlene." Kevin stared at him. "You're doing this for Tommy?" "I'm doing it because Arlene made me realize I've become someone I don't recognize. Someone who destroys marriages and families. Someone whose own kids won't talk to him anymore." Derek's voice cracked. "My daughter called me yesterday. First time in 6 months. You know what she said? She said she was ashamed to have me as a father, that she'd rather have no father than one who cheats on her mother." For the first time, Kevin felt something almost like sympathy for the man across from him. Almost. "What do you want from me?" Kevin asked. "I want you to convince Arlene to take the deal. She won't listen to me, won't listen to Patricia, but she might listen to you." "Why would I do that?" "Because the alternative is she goes to prison, and then Tommy really does lose his mother forever." If you're enjoying this story so far, pause and comment, "I am enjoying this story," below. Kevin drove to the hospital. Arlene was in a private room, hooked up to monitors, looking small and broken in the white hospital bed. She didn't look like the powerful executive who'd betrayed him. She looked like someone who'd lost everything and finally understood what that meant. "Kevin," she whispered when she saw him, "I didn't think you'd come." Derek told me about Patricia's deal. I'm not taking it. Why not? Because it's not enough, Arlene said bitterly. I deserve worse. I deserve everything that's coming. This isn't about what you deserve, Arlene. It's about what Tommy needs. Tommy needs a mother who isn't a criminal. He needs a mother who's present, who's trying, who's honest about her mistakes and working to fix them. Kevin pulled a chair closer to her bed. Take the deal. Do the therapy. Do the community service. Face the consequences, but don't give up on being his mother. Arlene turned away, tears streaming down her face. You're a better person than I ever gave you credit for, than I ever deserved. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for him. I know. She looked back at him. Can I ask you something? Why didn't you help Patricia destroy me completely? You had every right. Kevin thought about this, about all the rage and hurt and betrayal he'd felt, about the man he could have become versus the man he chose to be. Because revenge doesn't heal anything, he said finally. It just creates more pain. And I'm tired of pain. I'm so sorry, Kevin, for everything. I know, but sorry doesn't fix this. Only time and real change can do that. Arlene nodded slowly. I'll take the deal. I'll do the therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. Kevin stood to leave, then paused. Arlene, when you're better, when you've done the work, I'll let you back into Tommy's life. Real visitation, not just holidays. But you have to prove you've changed. You have to show up. Every time. No excuses. I will, Arlene promised. I swear I will. 3 months later, Kevin stood in the kitchen of his house, truly his house now, the divorce finalized, and watched through the window as Arlene played with Tommy in the backyard. She came every Saturday now. Every single Saturday, without fail. She'd lost weight, looked tired, but there was something different in her eyes, something real. She'd resigned from her company the day after their hospital conversation. Derek had done the same. The corporate espionage case had been quietly settled, no charges filed, but both their reputations in the industry were destroyed. Arlene now worked at a non-profit for half her previous salary. Derek had moved to another state. Kevin's phone buzzed. A text from his brother James. You hear about Derek? What about him? Engaged. To a therapist he met in his court-ordered counseling. Apparently he's actually doing the work, trying to be better. Kevin smiled slightly. Maybe people could change after all. Or at least, maybe they could try. Daddy, Tommy called from the backyard. Come play with us. Kevin looked at Arlene through the window. She gestured for him to join them, her expression hopeful but not demanding. Respecting boundaries. Learning. He shook his head, pointed to the kitchen, mimed making lunch. She nodded, understanding. They had boundaries now. Clear, healthy boundaries that protected everyone involved. As Kevin made sandwiches, he thought about the lottery ticket that had changed everything. The $50 million sat mostly untouched in careful investments. He'd bought a modest new car, set up college funds for Tommy, donated to charity, but the money itself? It mattered less than he'd imagined. What mattered was the truth it had revealed. What mattered was the life it had given him the courage to demand for himself and his son. What mattered was learning that his worth wasn't measured by his wife's opinion or his bank account, but by the man he chose to be when everything fell apart. His phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Mr. Myers, this is Rachel Kim from the California Lottery Commission. We're putting together a winners feature for our website. Would you be willing to share your story? Kevin looked out at Tommy, laughing as Arlene helped him build a fort from fallen leaves. He thought about everything they'd been through, all the pain and betrayal and hard-won healing. Thank you, he said politely, but I think I'll keep this story private. Are you sure? A lot of winners like to share how the money changed their lives. Kevin smiled. It did change my life, just not in the way anyone expected. He hung up and carried the sandwiches outside. Arlene thanked him, their hands briefly touching as she took a plate. No spark, no longing. Just the careful courtesy of two people learning to co-parent, learning to be better than they were. Daddy, Mommy says we can go to the zoo next weekend, Tommy announced, his face smeared with dirt and joy. Does she? Kevin looked at Arlene, who nodded. If that's okay with you. I know it's my Saturday, but I thought maybe we could all go. Together, as a family. She saw his expression and quickly added, not that kind of family. I know we're not. I just mean, for Tommy. So he knows we can all be together without it being weird. Kevin considered this. 6 months ago, the suggestion would have felt like manipulation. Now, it just felt like growth, like healing. Okay, he agreed. The zoo sounds good. Tommy whooped with excitement, and Arlene's smile was genuine, not the calculated charm she'd used throughout their marriage, but something softer, something earned. That night, after Arlene left and Tommy was in bed, Kevin sat on his back porch with a cup of coffee and looked at the stars. He thought about the man he'd been a year ago, tired, overlooked, taken for granted. He thought about the man he'd become, strong, clear-eyed, unafraid to demand respect. He thought about Arlene, working to rebuild herself from the ground up. About Derek, trying to be better for his estranged children. About Patricia, who'd gotten her revenge but told James it felt emptier than she'd expected. He thought about second chances, and whether people really deserved them. Whether growth was real or just an illusion we tell ourselves to avoid facing harsh truths. And as the stars wheeled overhead and a cool breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the neighbor's yard, Kevin Myers decided that it didn't matter what people deserved. What mattered was what you chose to give, what you chose to believe, what you chose to become in the face of betrayal and pain. He'd chosen mercy over revenge. He'd chosen boundaries over bitterness. He'd chosen to let Arlene earn her place back in Tommy's life, rather than cutting her out completely. Were these the right choices? Time would tell. But tonight, with his son safely sleeping upstairs and his heart finally at peace, Kevin thought that maybe, just maybe, he'd found something worth more than $50 million. He'd found himself again. And that, in the end, was the real prize. Several years later, Tommy stood between his parents at his middle school graduation. Kevin on one side, Arlene on the other, both clapping as he accepted his honors certificate. They weren't together, would never be together again, but they were both there, both present, both trying. Arlene had been showing up for 5 years now, every Saturday, every school event, every soccer game. She'd rebuilt her relationship with her son, one consistent, present moment at a time. She'd never asked Kevin for money, never tried to claim any of the lottery winnings, had honored every boundary, every agreement, and slowly, painfully, impossibly, she'd become a good mother. Not the mother she should have been from the start, but the mother she'd chosen to become after losing everything. After the ceremony, as they all went out for ice cream, Tommy looked at his parents and said, "Thanks for both being here. I know it's not always easy." Arlene and Kevin exchanged a look. Understanding, forgiveness, the peace that comes from surviving the worst and choosing to build something better from the ruins. "We'll always be here for you," Arlene said. "Both of us," Kevin agreed. "Always." And watching his son's relieved, happy smile, Kevin knew that every hard choice had been worth it. Every moment of choosing healing over revenge, growth over destruction, hope over bitterness. The lottery ticket had promised to change his life, but the real transformation had come from what he'd chosen to do with that change, from the man he'd chosen to become, and that was worth more than all the money in the world.